The Metropolitano was a cauldron tonight, and by the final whistle it had rewritten the storylines both clubs had been telling themselves this season. What began as a tense, familiar derby suddenly detonated into a rout, Atlético turning a fragile advantage into a 5-2 statement that will be dissected for weeks. Early on, Real Madrid looked like the team used to taking control. Crisp passes, probing runs, and a lead that promised to steady nerves. But football is often decided by seconds and small margins, and Atlético kept nibbling at those edges with an intensity that felt inevitable. The home crowd smelled blood and pressed. Their belief became a physical force, shoving Atlético higher, louder, hungry. When Julian Álvarez found his stride, the match stopped being a contest and became a demonstration. His 2 goals were not just strikes on a sheet of paper, they were punctuation marks on a breakdown, clinical finishes that punished hesitation and poor spacing in the white shirts. The scoreboard flipped, the momentum rolled, and Atlético's energy turned into a series of blows mad-libbed into goals. Real's defensive blueprint, in theory, is methodical and disciplined. Tonight it looked thin and at moments rudderless. Specific markers were lost, rotations lagged and set pieces. Those supposed moments of defensive clarity produced chaos instead. Young defenders who had shown promise found themselves chasing shadows. Miscommunications and misclearances handed Atlético the second wind they needed. Those weaknesses were not abstract tactical notes but concrete, repeated events, lost headers, late reactions and a line that could not compress or shift at the crucial moment. The result was a cascade rather than a single error, an avalanche of small failures that, together, became catastrophic. Player ratings and match analysts put the defensive evening under a harsh microscope, and names were called out for performances that simply did not match the occasion. Off the pitch, the reaction came quick and raw. Voices that lived to assess Real's mood erupted across television and social feeds. One of the loudest belonged to Tomás Roncero, whose fury captured a feeling among Madrid supporters that the team had not shown up in spirit or structure. Pundits spoke of selection questions, why a player who might not yet be fully match fit was given a major role, and why other in-form options began on the bench, and those tactical choices are already being rewritten in comment threads and editorial pieces. Fans asked how a side leading the table could be so thoroughly outplayed, how possession and profile on paper failed to translate into control on grass. The heat of the reaction matters because football is not just results, it is narrative, and tonight Real's narrative was badly dented. For Xabi Alonso, the headlines arrive heavy. His post-match words were measured, calls for reflection, promises of learning, but measured statements don't erase the facts on the pitch or the questions about structure, readiness and rotation that this result forces upon him. A league leader scarred by a derby defeat must now recalibrate quickly. Defences must be bolstered, roles clarified, and a sense of urgency planted into training sessions that will lead to Champions League nights and pivotal La Liga fixtures. The practical challenge is immediate. Plug holes, restore confidence, and find a formation that can withstand both relentless press and aerial threat. The strategic challenge is existential. Make sure that a humbling afternoon becomes a pivot point, not the start of a slide. What the result leaves behind is both a memory and a mandate. Atlético reclaimed pride and sent a message about their capacity to turn games inside out. Real Madrid returned to the dressing room with questions bigger than the scoreline. For viewers, bettors, pundits and players, the match will be replayed in different frames. A triumph for Simeone's doggedness, an evening to celebrate Álvarez's clinical edge, and a cautionary tale about complacency and structure. For Xabi Alonso, and for everyone who believes Real's season is a straight line towards glory. Tonight is a reminder that even the brightest blueprints need constant repair. The coming days will be full of analysis, maybe anger, certainly reflection, but above all a recognition that football can turn in an hour, and that the next chapters for both clubs begin with questions that must now be answered on the training ground and under real pressure.